Okay. Okay, so my name is Olivia Whitehouse, and I work here at Zenit Design, but in our Gothenburg office. But I actually lived in Malmö for about 4 years, but I'm from Gothenburg. So I am a graphic designer, and I work with communications as well. And today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, anxiety. It is a great word, and I have been very anxious about this talk, so I guess it's quite fitting. But I just want to start asking you all, how many here have felt anxious in their life? Hands up. Okay, I guess it was all of you. And yeah, most of us feel anxiety, and it is, according to the Swedish Health Ministry, whatever you call it, Vårdguiden, it's not dangerous at all. It's very natural, which I find quite funny because it doesn't feel that way. It feels incredibly unnatural and dangerous. But for me, anxiety has been a part of my life in a lot of different ways. But mostly it's been regarding one subject, which is the theme for today, creativity. And as I work in the creative industry, it knocks on my door quite often. So I'm calling this talk, Creativity and Anxiety, a Love Story. So I'm going to take you back about 10 years, when I was in high school. What program do you think I studied? Well, the red hair and piercing. I thought I was very artsy-fartsy, and I did the art program. And it was very natural for me to do that because I'd always been drawing my whole life, and being creative was just a huge part of my identity. So I went to high school and I did art and sculpture and stuff. But it was here that something happened to me, I think. Before drawing and illustration and crafting and making things with my hands had always been just like a joyful, imaginative, fun thing to do. It was just part of me. I didn't think, I just did. But here I started to compare myself. As I was a teenager, it is the age for finding yourself and starting to see other people around you in a different way. And also, I was getting graded in my thing that used to be my hobby. I was now being valued in my creativity. And I think this was my first experience of having like quite serious creative anxiety. So this is a sign from my teacher that me and my two friends, we have to start working, because we found it quite difficult to do things when someone told us to. And he thought that we were probably not taking it seriously at all. But that was the thing, I was taking it a bit too seriously. After high school, I did my other thing, which is traveling, because I just felt like I couldn't do anything creative anymore. So I did that for 5 years. I lived in Australia, and I traveled in Asia and did that whole route that most people do when they're 20-something. But then it was almost like my creative side was knocking on my door again. It is a part of me, and I couldn't really say no. So I moved to Malmö and I started studying. And after a while, I was getting into the creative flow again, and I started freelancing as a graphic designer. Therefore, this picture of hanging out in a hipster cafe working freelance. As you do, I think quite a lot of people in here might do that. But you know, I still feel anxious, and I was now comparing myself to people in the industry. And I was telling myself really shitty things, like, I'm a cliche, I'm hopeless, they think I'm a joke, I will disappoint them, I wouldn't meet the expectations, I will fail, I'm a fraud, I suck, I won't impress anyone with this shit. which are horrible things to say to yourself. Like, I never want anyone to say that to themselves, but I still do. But these sentences have something in common. Do you have an idea what it is? They're all about me. And that brings me into my main area today, the ego. I would say that those sentences are an echo from my ego. And your ego is basically your conscious mind, yourself. And it's okay to care about yourself. It's really important. Like, you have to care about yourself in one extent, but it can also stand in the way for creativity. And I'd rather go this way instead. You can go forward if you stop thinking those thoughts. But how, you wonder? And I'm going to give you my 3 go-tos that I use when I feel creative anxiety. So if you look at the word ego, it's about me, myself. The opposite of that, I would say, is empathy. And you know that several studies have shown that helping other people, being empathetic, makes you happier. And being anxious is not being happy. So I think it might be a good way to go. And so empathy has 2 parts. You've got the mental part, which is being able to just like imagine yourself being in another person's shoes. And the emotional part, where you feel what another person feels. You can understand their feelings. And so that brings me to my number 1 go-to, to stepping into someone else's shoes. So when I work on my designs, as I'm talking about creative anxiety, and I can, I sit in front of my blank page or with my blank piece of paper, and I'm starting to think, I suck, I'm a cliche. I try to pause and flip the coin. So with this design job is not about me at all. It is about the customer. It is about the customer's customer. And that's also how you should work with design, I think, and that's how we work here at Zenna Design. So a little buzzword for you is reframing. This is a way of thinking when you are trying to come up with an innovative idea. And so when you're having those thoughts, and you might be thinking like, okay, what should I design for this customer? Just asking that question it just brings you those, it just stops my mind at least. But if you go a little bit further, and you think, how can I help the customer? How can I make the customer's experience as good as possible? You dive into deeper questions, and you start thinking about other things like, oh, well, in the meeting with the customer, we were talking about this problem that they needed help with, and yeah, that's just a very basic way of showing how reframing works, but it's very handy. And suddenly you are using empathy as a tool to create really amazing, innovative ideas. And my number 2 is stop comparing and sharing instead. So I still compare myself, like it is human to compare yourself. But when I was a teenager, it was all about emotions, and I couldn't really be rational. As a grown-up, I can be rational. And I realized that I have 30-something people around me here at Zenna Design who are all amazing designers, but we have really different experiences. We have mechanical designers, we have service designers, graphic designers, industrial designers, and we are all different ages. They are an asset to me. And also my friends, my family, my dad, he's a graphic designer, and sometimes I call him. So what I try to do when I get stuck, I try to talk to my colleagues around me. Sometimes it's all about just talking, like you can just describe the customer and the problem that you're facing, and the person in front of you doesn't even have to say anything, like it just comes up and you start having ideas just by saying it out loud. Sometimes you can use your friend or your colleague to ask around, like maybe you have a word that you need help brainstorming with, like anxiety. What do you think about when you hear anxiety? And my number 3 is to just stop thinking. So if number 2 and 1 doesn't work, I think you should just stop thinking. And you know, we live in a society with a lot of information around us all the time, and it is really important to just shut off. So, and I don't mean like scrolling Instagram. That's too intellectual still. Like you need to stop thinking, pause. So what you can do, like you can take a walk, you can do the dishes, you can, what I usually do sometimes, I meditate. That's the number 1, I guess, when it comes to not thinking. Or like at least trying not to. I know it's difficult to shut off, but so for me, I try to take a walk during my lunch, and I actually did take a walk when I was feeling stuck with this presentation, because anxiety is a big word, and as I've had experiences with it in different ways, I just found it very difficult to just sit in front of my computer with this blank PowerPoint and like, there is nothing. And I started thinking like, they will not be impressed by me, blah, blah, blah. So I went and I walked around in the huge park that we have in Gothenburg, and I didn't even like plan to think about the presentation, but as it was in my mind there, my mind started wandering, and you know, I came up with this like, why do I feel anxiety? And I came up with this ego thing. So it's really handy. And when it comes to meditation, I know some people might think it's really flummy, but it doesn't mean, like you don't have to do it much. 5 minutes is enough. After your lunch, sit on the toilet and just close your eyes. Okay, so to sum it up, I've got the 3 here. My 3 go-tos. Step into the customer's shoes, don't compare, share. Stop thinking. And now I'd like all of you to close your eyes and think about how do you handle your creative anxiety? Just for a little minute. Okay, you can open your eyes. Thank you, that was very nice. So under your chairs, you've got some post-its. I'm not going to do this for long, so I'd rather want you to share your experiences or your thoughts or maybe some tips. And some of you have pens, I think, and the people in you've got some post-its, yeah. And just share your thoughts, and we'll put it up here. And yeah, thank you for having me, or this is my place, so thank you for being here.